Yeah, your makeup looks good.
Mhm. We are live now.
Yes, we're close. It's going now. We're streaming live on Facebook. That's right. So, welcome to Up Close. Um, I'm Randy Dixon, Artistic Director of Unexpected Productions, and I'm talking today with Antonio Vulpio from Teatro Molla in Bologna, Italy, as well as he's a member of the Orcas Island Project. So, we're going to spend an hour talking about improv and see where that takes us. So before I get to Antonio, do a few announcements. Again, if you feel free or would like to make a donation, feel free to make a donation on our behalf. We are still trying to maintain the Market Theater, and we hope to be back there soon. We are doing some video shows there that you may have seen, but we want to have a time, hopefully, when we can all come back. We have lots of shows going on. We have our Wednesday duo show, Thursday Wildcard, Friday and Saturday through Halloween. We have Campfire, which is where we interview you, the audience, or find spooky stories somewhere, and then we turn them into brand new Campfire tales. And we also have classes, specialty classes coming up. So check that out, including a sketch writing class with Kevin McDonald for Kids in the Hall, and all those you can look up on unexpectedproductions.org. So, Antonio,
Buonasera. Hi, Randy.
hello. Thank you for staying up and
Thank you.
talking.
Thank you for having me.
Oh,
I'm very emotional right now, because we are live on Facebook. So it's the I fear that something could fall on me and millions of people will see
we'll see it. Well,
yeah.
that's good. Is that how you live your life?
Yeah, exactly. In my life is I'm terrorized that something something embarrassing could happen to me in front of the other people.
Okay. All right. So let's talk. Oh, and if you have questions or comments, feel free to drop them into the Facebook chat. And I'll try to remember to look over there from time to time. And so we'll start with the simple question. So obviously you're working with a theater company um, in Bologna. We'll get to that. But first of all, let's get your background. How did you find improv, or did improv find you? And when did you first see it? What got first were interested in it?
Yeah, I started improv in 96, and improv uh, was young too in Italy, because improv came around 89, 90 in Italy. So I never heard about it until a friend decided to go take a class and asked me if I wanted to join. So I said yes, let's go. Then of course I was struck, and I continued. My friend, of course, uh, stopped, you know, and and I went on, and I never stopped doing improv. Well, until a couple of years ago, but that's another story. Um, I never, well, before learning, well, going to a class, not learning, but going to a class. I didn't see an improv show. I didn't know what was like. So for me, improv has been always attached to this feeling of going out there and playing, instead of being, entertained by a show. So for
Right.
me, the idea is of improv. The first idea was, let's play. So yeah. So very, very, very dull. It was a very dull story of how I began my improv career.
Right.
Uh,
You
Yeah,
saved all the
and I
excitement
get
for the end.
stuck. I get stuck with improv. Actually, didn't. Um, um, I didn't took the proper theater road. I was stuck with improv. So yeah,
Right.
I had some TV experience, but mainly my career as an actor has been on an improv stage.
Right. Huh. And how do you feel like your improv changed over the years? Like you said, at first it was all just about just play, and you're still a playful improviser. But how do you feel your
You
growth?
mean my personal style, my personal
Yeah.
relationship with improv? it it has changed a lot. At the beginning, like I said, it was just yeah, play, play. Then I discovered that was so liberating for me that I could really, you know, transcend and be really bold on stage. So I was able to find my voice to really, uh, yeah, find myself on stage. And I became like, well, we say stage animal. Do you have this? Yeah, stage animal. Like I was more comfortable on stage than out out the stage. Um, and then I discovered over the years that improv is a very powerful tool to explore relationships and understand people and see through people. So in the in the next in the next years, my style was really transformed from me to make myself to find my voice, to um, yeah, to take care of my identity, to be more open and listen more to the others, to give them, to empower other people.
Mhm.
And that's really happened because I met people like you or Patty Styles that really changed my view.
Mhm.
I gotta say that the first time I saw Unexpected production in, I think it was Berlin in 2002, in '05 or 4, and you did a very simple thing on stage, like a panel about uh, creatures in the ocean. It was very poetic, and I was like, oh, that's, I want to do that. Because the quality of that image was harmony. There weren't spike of um, identity or individuals. There was an harmonious paint. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah, in the last years, the latter years, let's say 4 5 years ago, I became more and more interested in the micro decision we take when we are on stage. And yeah, I started to really experiment with the improvisation, and yeah, and do things like the saboteur work or other other shows that are not maybe enjoyable by the audience, like the kind of shows that usually only improvisers go to. There are improviser on here in the room, and everybody raise the hand, so
Right.
you are performing for improvisers.
Right. I'm going to make a note because I want to make sure that we come back to Saboteur.
Yeah,
It was a
absolutely.
really fun thing. So, in terms of improv knowledge and training, what resource would you say within improv uh, you've has helped you the most, or you think is most helpful? And then maybe another source outside of improv. Is there some other book or some other type of class or type of theater, music, whatever that you think somehow should is important to improv? If that makes sense.
For me, one thing that I really relate to is the concept that, well, you presented this concept coming from Del Close. So, but I took it from you. So the idea that the audience goes to the theater and basically tells their story. So I go to the theater and I look at you on stage, but through you, I tell my story to myself. So that's, for me, was really, a change of paradigm, because, well, from one hand, helped me to take a lot of weight from my shoulders. So I think for an improviser, it's important to consider that the audience, of course, is coming to see you, but at the same time has access to information that you don't have. So you do things on stage, probably they will laugh, or they will cry, or they will look at their their watch, but it's not 100% your responsibility. You have some part of responsibility in this, but it's you plus the information on the brain of the person. So there is something. Audience goes to the theater and basically tells responsibility in this, but it's who's this guy? You plus the information on the brain of the person.
We're getting my.
There's something.
You're hearing your own wisdom. That's really.
Yeah. Who's this annoying
Mute
guy?
That. Hang on. There we go. Sorry about that.
It's the worst thing in the world, hearing your voice,
Yeah.
or your recorded voice. That's, yeah. Now all Facebook people
I know.
are.
So there is a little latency there, so that's funny. Anyway, the wisdom of the world.
Yeah. So this is important, and really for me, it's a very, well, it's not technical, but it's a point of view. It's a philosophical rock. So yeah. In terms of other resources than outside of improv, there is a lot. I think, again, identity is a key word here, because everybody brings themselves on stage, and as long as we remember that, we can bring really a unique flavor on stage. I really hate when I know where the improv will go, because it means the improvisers started to, put themselves on a railroad of a story that will go where the story should go, and I hate this.
Right, and oftentimes
Because,
it's like there's a track that they're on, the railroad track that they're on, and then an offer will come that wants to deviate the story, but they'll just kind of like bring it right back to being on track versus going where that deviance wants to take you.
Yeah, because a Western should go that way, or a noir should go that way.
Right.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about, I'm not sure what sequence I want to do this in. Let's talk about starting your company, so Teatro Molla,
Mhm.
uh, and how that all came together, or was it pre-existing, or you know,
Well, it was. I don't know if today I would do that,
yeah,
but in 2000, well, Teatro Molla was born in 2007, and was was the consequence of my new uh, discoveries to, you know, learning that there was a world outside the improv scene in Italy. And the improv scene in Italy in 2000 and yeah, 4 or 5 for me was improv match. When improvisation came to Italy, as I said, it was around the 90s, and a group of people started to perform improv match, and they were trained actors, so the shows were very entertaining because they were proper actors with a background of improv. um, it was new, so this kind of show really spread up very
hmm,
quickly. But after a decade, uh, a lot of new people came. The hip of the show, the freshness of the show was kind of washed a little bit away. And after a while, I didn't I didn't felt that that show was giving me the novelty I wanted. If I can go on stage and do whatever I want, I can be whatever I like in that moment. I found that I had another part aside the comedy and the funny part that wanted to find their way. So I had yeah, the privilege. I know it's you here, so it seems that I'm praising your. But again, for me, coming to the the Gorilla Festival in Berlin in 2005 was really life changing. I discovered that there was a very, yeah, my world wasn't that, was more, was larger. So when I came back to Italy, I wanted to try. So, and fortunately, I knew some people that were ready to sail with me in these adventures. So, yeah.
cool. And so and I guess the second question that I was thinking about earlier, good time to ask, which is Italy as in terms of the improv world was sort of structured very differently than say a lot of other places. And so I'm wondering if you could explain that a little bit about how that worked to people who are not familiar with that kind of
Mhm.
nationwide group instead
Yeah,
of the individual groups.
yeah. In Italy, I take this as an advantage. I usually when I speak with the Italian improvisers about that usually complain because we feel the lesser brothers and sisters in the improv community. I usually uh, shed the light on the aspect that we are a community. That Italian improviser, a lot of people know each other's, you know, very pretty well, and that's because, as I told before, there was this. company that in the 90s were performing all around Italy. And people fell in love with this discipline, so they wanted to learn, and a lot of improv clubs were born, and the teachers were the same people that were in the company. So we had 5-6 people that planted the improv seeds all around Italy. And because people weren't ready to do a proper show, and because an improv match required a lot of people, like 12, 13, 14 people, there was always the need to ask for players for other cities. So basically we started to frequent each other in this way. And even when some people decided to do other kind of shows, we always had invited each other. So yeah, the improv community in Italy is very well. We know each other very well, and of course there are people that can go, well together, but the majority of people really go along very well.
Right. So it sort of evolved from, and still is to a certain extent, a kind of network-based, countrywide network of improvisers versus, say, in North America, where it's all very individual groups that have started, over the last decade or two to mix and mingle a little bit, but you still have all the emphasis, I guess, is on the little smaller groups.
Yeah.
So when you started your group, it was sort of not unusual, because you said there were these other groups that were starting, but it seemed like it had a life of its own for your group and became very successful.
Yeah, part of it because we took the things seriously. So we started to, train like a couple of times during a week or more. While the usual improviser just go on stage, does something every now and then because it's improvised. So what you should rehearse, right? But because for us was important to achieve a high level for us, for our needs, we needed to train together. So yeah, we spent a lot of time training, and because we were very young, but we wanted to to push ourselves to try new things. So even risking to do shows that weren't shows that maybe we're doomed, but we needed to do it because we wanted to see, to try it.
Right. Yeah. And were you starting with long forms?
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of long forms are you trying at those earlier days?
Yeah, in the early days, we had two kind of long forms. One was based on time, space, and place unity. So just one scene with 3 or 4 characters, fixed characters, and a scenography, a real scenography.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea was to explore the relationships between the characters. It's nice because it was 2006, 2007, and until that point in Italy, improvisation were just short scenes, like 5 minutes or
Right.
5 minute
Short form,
scene.
yeah.
Usually,
Games, yeah.
yeah, funny scenes, and instead 1 hour. And of course was risky because maybe as I said, we were young, and maybe we weren't, weighing the risks, you know,
Mhm.
like boring people, maybe.
Right.
Yeah, in fact, I remember in this kind of show once, people going away, going.
Really? Just once?
which by the way, I think it's a very precious experience for an actor in general, like, okay, oh God, they are going, what?
Uh,
But yes, at the same time, people came to me after the show, th- thanking me, because it was something new, and and I could really understand that they experienced something similar to what I have experienced when I
right.
saw your shows or other
Right.
master shows.
Right. Yeah. It seems that, I mean, part of it's the training of the audience that we've gotten a little bit better at in terms of creating expectations as to what they're going to see.
Hmm.
And,
Hmm.
I'm sure you have the same thing here that are there that we have here, which is that most of the popular mainstream TV, the improv tends to be this fast and funny short form stuff. And so, which is fine, but when people come to see something longer, they're expecting that, and so of course they're going to be disappointed. And and the thing I find interesting in sort of what you were saying about the people leaving and then the people staying and thanking you afterwards is there are people that want that work, that want the kind of more serious, in-depth work. And I'm
Yeah.
sure you have friends as well, or have met audience members as well, that they're not going to come see our short form show because it's just not anything of interest to them. And by the same
Yeah.
token, there are people that won't go to our long form shows because they just like fast and funny, have a drink and forget about life for a while. So so it's interesting. I mean, and
Yeah.
I don't know. You've performed all over the world as well. If you want to address sort of the differences in audiences, because what it reminds me of is my experience of the European audience is they're much more patient with stuff. Um, so if something's not working, even if it's short form and it's not working, they're generally, they'll still tell you they hate it afterwards, but they'll stay for the most part. Whereas I find sometimes the North American audiences aren't that way. If it doesn't meet the expectations, then they're gonna go in some cases. So I don't know if
Yeah.
you want to address that or.
Yeah, about that, I think Germany in particular has a very educated audience. I don't know, I think because they have culture in their DNA. So it's like, okay, this is an experience I want to be present at. So yeah, you're right. Maybe you afterwards they will tell you, I did, I hated your show. But that is not personal, and that's great, because it's really honest.
Yeah.
I, I would say that in general, being going abroad, being I can see that the audience usually is more, well, how can I say, um, good spirited towards you,
Hmm.
because they are curious. They want to, yeah, they are studying you. They want to understand who you are. So I felt that whenever I went abroad, there was often this spirit of curiosity, and gave me, I felt blessed by this, positive prejudice.
Right.
Yeah.
While we're on the topic, you also teach, and you've actually taught here in Seattle and at many festivals and all over. And I'm just curious about like the differences in students. Do you notice a difference in your international work between, certain countries bring this certain thing to this, or the student from this country brings a certain cultural fingerprint to the workshop versus, say, in Italy or Germany or USA,
Well,
Canada.
I would say, I would say, I would make a distinction between Italian students and students from other parts of the, well, I would say Latin students in general, and North European or American students. Well, the Latins tends to talk a lot, to explain to themselves, like Italian and Latin Americans. Just they start. You present a concept, they start doing something on stage, then they need to talk about it to yeah, and you can just sit there and listen. And I'm sure you had this experience too in Italy. While I found that in North America or North Europe, there is this spirit of being, being attentive and trying not to lose a single word.
Right.
I attributed this to my English, because I'm not sure if I explained myself well. So I always attributed this to their attention. But yeah, I think this is the difference I noticed.
And now, and I guess this brings us sort of back to your current work in terms of what Teatro Molla is doing, as well as I know you're doing your own stuff as well outside of that.
Mm-hmm.
So where's the work brought you now? Like, what's the current version of what's happening?
I had this moment a couple of years ago when I really needed to step back a little bit, because I felt a lot of pressure coming from the shows. Well, until a couple of years ago, we were always finding new shows, as I said, exploring and doing stuff was very exciting. But I felt, I came to a point in which I couldn't take it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It was too much, so I needed to say, okay, I quit. I need a pause. So I took a sabbatical year from Teatro Molla, and I wanted to focus on myself, on what I wanted to do. If I wanted to do improv still or not. So because I came to a point where I was going on stage to do just my job, like I was working on in an office or
Right.
or in a factory,
Right. So it wasn't fun, or it wasn't
it
challenging.
was terrible. It was a terrible feeling, because I chose to do this because I love improv. I love performing. I love being with people and and relate to them. So what was the point to do this and not loving it? so I decided to quit for a while, and then I discovered that I loved it. I wanted to do it more, but I wanted to do a little bit more of my stuff. So I started to work with the audience. There is a show called 15 Minutes of Celebrity, Your 15 Minutes of Celebrity, performed by Lee White, where he this was the first time I heard about this kind of show. There is a lot of performers and actors that do this kind of show, but the first time I heard about this show was from Lee, and I thought to myself, what's the point? What's the point in an artistic way to go on stage with an audience member? Then, after I took my pause and I reflected a little bit, and the work on the saboteurs developed more, I understand that was my next goal, that I needed to work with the audience, because I needed to train myself to the point that I could improvise with people that don't know how to improvise. So if I wanted to be a good improviser, I needed to go there. So yeah, now I'm there.
Right. And
I
so
cannot perform right now because, but yeah.
So saboteurs, what describe that?
Well, actually, there is this game. Maybe people who are listening to us know this game. It's a classic game called The World's Worst Improviser. It was taught to me by Patty Stas the first time, and basically you try to make the scene work while the other person is trying to ruin it. And I was so struck by the concept that we started to work with Teatro Molla on this concept. So we developed an entire show based on this premise. So yeah, the show is very simple, well, in terms of structure, not in terms of the show itself, which is very difficult, technically speaking. But yeah, people go on stage, and there is always one person trying to do their worst to make the scene go bad. And and the show works because it's funny, because audience could really see the struggle of the improvisers trying to manage this crazy stuff going on. And technically speaking, for me, was really a mine in terms of stuff to study or to discover, because every error people does on stage comes from one direction, and once you can get a glimpse of why these people is acting in this way, you can try to move yourself out of your point of view and try to make it work. But first you have to abandon your old habit, your prejudice. So for me was really a path, I would say, is really a path to walk.
Right. And do the person trying to make it work and things, does that rotate then?
Yeah. So every time we have a new saboteur who says, now I will block, or I will stay silent for all the scene. Sometimes these aren't really sabotages,
Right.
because if you are if you stay silent all the scene, maybe the audience would say, wow, oh, that's difficult. But we know that it is not. But
Right.
sometimes the sabotage styles are really crazy.
Right. Well, it
Yeah.
works really well with that idea of, I always talk about the improv only works when it's pushing against something, whether that's the rules of a game or pushing even against a topic or a theme.
Hmm.
So it seems like you're setting that up there because, groups feel like, oh, well, we'll just do anything and that'll be easier because then we won't have those barriers. But it actually makes it harder to do because you don't have anything to push against, anything to work against.
Yeah.
So it seems like, yeah, it'd be a natural built in. And of course, sometimes I'm sure it goes haywire and doesn't work, but then there are times when you find these choices that the saboteur is making, not only complementing the scene, but also a choice they wouldn't have made otherwise as a player if it was just an
Exactly.
open scene. So,
Yeah. And you discover that that's it, not really a sabotage. It's just a bold offer, an offer that you wouldn't do if you weren't a saboteur. Crazy, right?
yeah.
And and again, I working with Orcas Island Project gave me one important part to go in that direction, because we together worked a lot on non-narrative improv, which for me trained trained me a lot on understanding what's going on right now, because in non-narrative there is no fixed scene.
Right.
It's not the two cowboys drinking in the saloon, because maybe one moment later we are just clouds in the sky.
Right.
So working with shows like Herald or Translation, and yeah, by the way, I remember one of the best show in my life wasn't really a show in front of an audience, was a rehearsal we had uh, together.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, this kind of work gave me the mindset to understand that storytelling is an illusion. You go on stage and the story, the scene, the whatever, it's as you say, is in the mind of the people watching. So you just need to react,
Right.
not clinging on what's going on in the scene, but
Right.
be aware of whatever happens.
Yeah. It's the idea of that we've talked about a lot of, yeah, the story happens in the mind of the audience. So even if we're doing something abstract, the audience is doing something with it story wise because that's what we do as
Yeah.
humans. And I think the improvisers, again, I talk to students all the time and say our job as improvisers is to take the audience story and translate that into theater. It's not to be the playwright. It's not to go, here's the play I want to show you. If that's the way you're thinking, then go be a playwright. uh,
Yeah.
and yeah, so and with Orcas Island Project, and by the way, for those who are not familiar with Orcas Island Project, it's a project that I put together a number of years ago. How many years ago now? About 14 years, a long
Uh,
time,
yeah.
or
Yeah.
around there, maybe a little less. But it's a group of international improvisers who get together usually once a year. We've had a kind of spotty record these last few years, once or twice a year, and we work on shows that focus on taking sort of abstract stuff, so non-narrative. So there's a lot more movement and sound, and what's fun about it, kind of going back to the saboteur, is even if you make a move and the move doesn't work, you're surrounded by all these really great improvisers who then just make you look really good. Uh, so in some ways, it's pretty hard to sabotage that show. Uh, um, but yeah, and also I don't know if you find this when you're working that way, it takes all the pressure off because
Absolutely.
it's not up to me
Yeah.
to figure it out. It's up to me to just provide. stuff for the audience to then take and do what they want to do with it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for me, working with Orcas Island Project really gave this precious thing to me. Yeah, not having the pressure of and responsibility to make to explain something, but be there and catch whatever catches your attention and develop it. Yeah,
Yeah.
great. And yeah, can I show you something? I
Uh-oh.
have, speaking about Orcas Island Project, I found a picture, and I want to see your reaction. Then maybe it needs an explanation, but I
Uh-oh.
just wanted to show you. Okay. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I'll never forget it.
I have another picture that could either explain a little bit more of the picture or or create more confusion.
Yep. Yep.
Oh my God.
That's high quality theater right there.
Yeah, yeah. But
So for explanation a little bit, that's Yuri Kinagawa, who's an Orcas Island member from Japan/New Zealand. And we were working on Afterlife, which is actually a show we've done with Orcas Island Project first, including, I think the last time we did was the run in Berlin. And then we've done it a couple times here in Seattle with an Unexpected Productions cast. And my goal eventually is to maybe try to do it with a mixed cast of both groups. But we were trying all these weird experiments that I was bringing in, and one of them was staging these different kind of chapters around the notion of life and death, and that was Yuri's.
heaven and hell.
um, but it was really well done because she hid it behind two doors.
Yeah.
Remember that? And we had to go look through the
Yeah,
little
we need to
door.
choose.
Yeah. But it didn't end up in the show. But it's seared in my mind.
But again, working with in mind the concept of the death and the memory and the loss, again, was pushing against the limit, as you said before. And I remember, yeah, great stuff.
Yeah.
Great
Well,
moments.
and it's funny because you may remember, I'm sure, but with Orcas Island Project, we were looking for something to do together, but everybody was kind of separated, and you have these different cultural fingerprints all over the place. So Italy is different than Germany, Germany is different than the U.S., Japan, Australia are different than the rest. And so what I was trying to do is find something we all have in common. So something we could, either do that or do something different. Like we remember one time we talked about doing a show all about flags and our country's flag, and bringing stuff to that. So just trying to find something common ground that we could work on, and realizing that, well, everybody dies. So let's do a show about, death and what people have after death, or what people think about, or where it's big and where it's not, and that kind of stuff was the inspiration for the show. And yeah, that was a lot of fun. And that's one thing that I really love. I love it in general, but I'd say probably the level of fun that I have at Orcas Island Project rehearsals and gatherings is definitely higher than in regular shows. And I don't know whether it's just I'm so familiar with UP. I don't know if you feel the same way with
Absolutely.
Teatro Molla.
Yeah.
But it definitely is for me. Kind of love going there. Just getting a charge out of it is really cool.
Yeah, and it's funny because usually when my friends in Teatro Molla usually make fun of me and Orcas Island Project, telling that the only picture we have aside from the shows are with us eating or drinking, right? And they are right. They are right. uh, and at the beginning, I was puzzled because I was said, yeah, okay, we do a lot of that, but then I realized it really, was an epiphany that when we are together, we are together, and we have this moments around a table like a family, and and usually when we stay together, we cook together, and so it's there is a dimension of daily life,
Mhm.
of normality,
Right.
versus we have to do a show, so we have to intellectualize this. Of course, there is this part, but for me, the sign, it's that
Right.
we are family in a way, so it's normal that family share a lot when they are together eating and drinking together.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, we do talk at rehearsals, but it's in terms of there's a lot of debriefing that kind of happens through conversations around a table or at night when
Yeah.
everyone's just trying to relax, And the reason for the pictures, and I do have some pictures of us rehearsing, so I can send those to you and you can whip them out. Uh, uh, but for the most part, there are no pictures of us rehearsing because we're rehearsing and everyone is
Exactly.
really engaged. So it's not picture taking time. It's and we have that. The rehearsal that you're talking about, the same experience for me. Like, wow, this is incredible. And then of course you think, gee, I wish we had taped it, but now I'm kind of so glad that we didn't,
Yeah.
because it was just in that moment for that period of time, magic hit the room, and everybody was incredibly moved by it, and it doesn't happen that often. So
Yeah,
um, uh,
was a special moment just for us,
yeah,
and well, we didn't even say let's do something. It was
yeah,
so spontaneous that I cannot really
yeah.
track the moment when we decided to start.
Yeah, I've had a few other Orcas Islander project people on here, and that one always comes up, which is in one of the earlier interviews I was talking about how it happened. We literally walked into the room, put our bags down, and then just kind of started. And nobody was driving it. Nobody said, "Hey, let's all gather around." Um, you
Can I
know,
have a location?
right, right, right. But it just started, and it was long. It was a good hour long, just
Yeah,
and it just happened. Um,
yeah,
you know and then of course the follow-up to that, which also occurs in all of our improv, is you touch to the ceiling and it feels great, and then of course you want to try to do it again, and then by pushing it you're never going to get there again.
yeah,
You just got to invite it into the room, and either it comes in or it doesn't, and just accept that, I guess.
yeah.
So we have a few minutes left.
Mhm.
I'm curious about, like, what are the first things, and this is either as a teacher, performer, director, um, when you're working with a crew, and I know it changes based on people's experience, but what's kind of the key element that you think about improv that everybody should start with? You a skill or a way of approaching the work, or so it might be, start with your body or something like that. But something that you find yourself really wanting people to get first.
For me, the one thing I always tend to return to is vulnerability, because of course I think the actor work on yourself is important. Use the voice, have listening. Yeah, but there are a lot of things that you can do to improve your work. But for me, being vulnerable is important because it's the key to to create the relationship with the other person.
Right.
Yeah, your partners on stage or the audience. Without it, you will not be able to relate to the others. Maybe you're a wonderful actor, a wonderful improviser, a genius, but you can, but it will not help the people watching you to tell their story.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if you agree. I guess I can ask you. In terms of the fear of the performer, in terms of being exposed in some sort of way, is what's sort of behind that? Because if you operate from what we were talking about earlier, telling the audience a story, then you can be incredibly vulnerable as the character because it's not even you. So why not make that character more vulnerable? But I think the improvisers tend to project themselves on stage rather than think about the character that they're playing. So it makes them standoffish because none of us wants to be too vulnerable in life because we're going to get hurt. And so I think that maybe that's the source. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah. Yeah, in a way. Yes. Uh, there is also the how can I say, the you know, having the courage to look at the things, or well, maybe it's not the courage, it's a gift to see the truth, to see what is true and what is not,
Hmm.
what is true to you in that moment and what is not. I don't know if it's clear.
Right.
Like I can, yeah, being able to look at something and being able to tell yourself the truth about this, like I'm scared right now, or I don't want to be here right now, or I'm very happy, I'm exhilarated by being here, and being able to admit this to yourself instead of masking yourself with the character.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. Um, cool. We're sort of at time, but I want to finish by asking you something. You and I were talking beforehand a little bit, and you're
Uh,
saying, as with a lot of us, well, actually, two parts to this question, kind of unrelated, but you can answer them both. One was
yeah,
in our previous conversation, you said that Italy is essentially going into lockdown again, and they're closing the theaters again.
kinda,
Um,
yeah. Tomorrow
and
they will tell us.
yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, well, who knows, right? Who knows what works and what doesn't work. So that's interesting. In terms of opening and reclosing, we haven't had that. We've been closed the entire time. So we haven't had this reopen, close thing. So
Mhm.
I'll be curious to follow up on that. Will you guys be doing shows online or just no shows unless you can do them live?
Well, we Teatro Molla didn't do shows, online shows.
Hmm.
Um, we have to decide if we are going through a lockdown. Probably we will invent something. But for me, and we talk about it, and we agree in the company. We all agree about one thing, that if we do an online show, uh, the show must benefit from being online. It must be, yeah, it must be something that it's better online than live. Sorry.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think it's absolutely true. And yeah, getting there is hard because there's all this technology between you and the audience.
Yeah.
Okay,
You did some shows online, right?
yeah, we have, and some have worked, some have not worked. Big
Hmm.
steep learning curve,
Hmm.
and we're still figuring it out, still learning stuff.
Well, the good thing I imagine is it's a new it's a brand new territory. So yeah, let's do this. Let's
Yes.
try.
And I mean, our goal is to continue doing some online stuff even after everything. The question is just what works and what doesn't work, and that's kind of
Yeah.
what we're playing with. The last question I have, because you were talking about that and saying that, basically you have no show to plug right now. Uh, so when all this is over, has anything changed for you improv wise in your personal philosophy? Like when you can go back and get on stage, um, and let's say everything's regular, regular audience and everything. Uh, has something shifted or changed during this time for you?
Um, I I cannot answer right now. What I know is when I see pictures of crowd of people, I am like, oh wow, oh they are so close. There's something working in my brain right now. All these people together without masks. But yeah, when we will return to an old normality, maybe we want to do a lot of physical, intimate stuff, intimate scenes, kissing,
Touch
and
each other all the time. Yeah.
yeah.
Right. Cool. Well, a couple things, and I have a couple of announcements.
Yes.
One is there were some comments on there on the Facebook page. Thank you very much. And the latest was Andrea Campelli. Hope I'm saying
Uh-huh.
that right.
Yeah.
Antonio is our ambassador. So your ambassador, Antonio from Italy, I guess is the. And last but not least, I love your shirt. Um,
Really? Really? Because it says Seattle Theater Sports.
no, just because it looks good on you. That's why.
Um, well, this kind of t-shirts looks good on everybody, and you can find it at UP
There you go.
UP Theater.
All right. It's good to see you. Uh,
Good to see you. Good to see you,
and thank you
Randy.
so much for doing this. And
Thank you.
yeah, and if you end up doing stuff online, let us know, and we'll try to
Absolutely.
help get audiences there. A couple of announcements. Again, we have shows all week long. We have classes, all that stuff I talked about at the beginning. Tonight we have a special campfire show at 8:30, and come and check that out. You can buy tickets through Eventbrite for that, and also make donations. And thank you again for your support, not only in watching these things, but in your donations. Thank you very much. Coming up in the next few weeks in this slot, actually next week, if you can't make it to Campfire tonight, we're going to do a special 1 o'clock campfire in this slot. So next Saturday, 1 o'clock Pacific time, whatever time that is, wherever you are right now. So come check that out if you want to see Campfire done online. And also, then in the ensuing weeks after that, the week after the campfire, we'll have UP alum who now lives in Connecticut, Claire Zick, who is doing teaching and producing shows, improv shows in Connecticut, Hartford, Connecticut. And then after that, uh, basically through the middle of December, somewhere in December, we're doing kind of a UP round where we'll have different UP members being interviewed by me about topics that either they're interested in or things that you might not know about their improv world or their life, as well as their general philosophy and things like that. So it'll be a chance to get to know some of the UP company members and staff better. So that's what's coming up down there. And again, thank you to Antonio Vulpio for being here, and stay well,
Thank you.
stay
Thank
healthy.
you.
All right.